It was a warm Saturday afternoon. The sun was shining bright. Birds were singing in the trees. Kids were riding their bikes down the quiet street. In the corner house on Maplewood Lane, the Johnson family was setting up a backyard BBQ. The smell of grilled chicken and smoky ribs floated in the air. Laughter echoed as little Maya, only 6 years old, ran around with her cousins, her tiny feet making soft thuds on the grass. Everything felt peaceful. Everything felt normal. But someone was watching. Behind a curtain in the house next door, a man stood staring. His name was Mr. Taylor, a retired factory worker. Alone, angry, bitter. He didn't like noise. He didn't like change. But more than anything, he didn't like the Johnsons. He thought they were too loud. He thought they didn't fit in with the neighborhood. But he never said those words out loud. He didn't have to. His eyes said enough. Mr. Taylor stepped outside. He stood at the edge of his yard, arms crossed. His cold eyes moved slowly over the Johnson family. There was Angela, the mother, placing plates on the table with a big smile. There was Marcus, the father, flipping burgers on the grill and laughing with his brother, and around them, their children played. Music played softly, and joy filled the air. Mr. Taylor didn't like it, not because it was loud, but because it was happy, because it came from them. He mumbled to himself, "This isn't their kind of neighborhood." He walked back inside and picked up his phone. His fingers shook slightly as he dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" Mr. Taylor cleared his throat and made his voice sound serious. "Yes, I'd like to report a disturbance. There's a large crowd at the house next to mine. Loud music, smoke everywhere. Smells like marijuana. I think it could be dangerous." It was all lies, but he said it with confidence. The operator took the report and said an officer would be dispatched back. In the backyard, Marcus smiled as he turned the ribs over. "Angela, smell this. I think I just made history." Angela laughed. As long as it's not burnt history. Their kids were playing tag. The food was almost ready. The mood was perfect. Then Marcus's cousin came over. "Hey man, there's a police car pulling up." Marcus turned toward the driveway. A patrol car had just stopped in front of their house. 2 officers stepped out, looking around. The music stopped. Conversations paused. The air changed. Angela's smile faded. "Why are they here?" Marcus gently placed the tongs on the table. "I don't know, but I'll handle it." He walked calmly to the officers. The guests watched silently. The kids stood still. One officer, a young white man, looked unsure. The other, a woman, was already holding a notepad. "Good afternoon, officers," Marcus said kindly. "Is everything okay?" The woman spoke first. "We received a call about loud noise, a possible fire, and suspicious activity." Marcus blinked. "Suspicious? This is a family BBQ. Do you mind if we take a look around?" she asked. Marcus kept his voice calm. "Sure, but you won't find anything dangerous here. Just ribs and potato salad." From behind the fence, Mr. Taylor watched with a smirk. He thought this would be the moment. He thought the family would be embarrassed. He thought they'd be told to stop. He wanted that. The officers walked into the backyard. The guests stood quietly. Some recorded on their phones. The woman officer looked around. She saw children, families, food. Nothing was wrong, but she still asked questions. "Who lives here? How many people are invited? Are you all related?" Angela stepped forward. "This is our home. We're the Johnsons. That's my husband, Marcus, our kids, my sister and brother. It's just family." The male officer looked at Marcus and then at the small badge number pinned to his chest. He paused. "You said your name is Marcus Johnson?" he asked. "Yes," the officer blinked. I think I've heard that name before." Suddenly his tone changed. He stepped back. He pulled his partner aside and whispered something. Angela looked at Marcus. "What's going on?" Marcus didn't answer. He just watched. The female officer came back, her voice softer now. "We're sorry for the misunderstanding. You're free to continue. No problems here." Angela crossed her arms. "Really? Because my daughter is scared now, and our guests feel unwelcome." The officer looked uncomfortable. "We were just following a report." Marcus stepped forward. "May I ask who made the report?" The officers looked at each other. Then the woman nodded toward Mr. Taylor's house. Marcus sighed. The BBQ continued. But something had changed. The music came back on. The food was served. Laughter returned. Slowly. But now, there was a cloud over everything, not from the smoke, but from the truth. Someone didn't want them there. Someone had tried to stop their joy. Someone thought a badge and a lie could silence them. But what Mr. Taylor didn't know was Marcus had a badge too, and when the time was right, he would show it, because this wasn't just about BBQ. This was about belonging. And Marcus Johnson was about to remind everyone that his family belonged here. The barbecue was still going, but something had changed. The music was quieter. The laughter didn't sound the same. People were still smiling, but now those smiles were nervous. The Johnsons' backyard was full of love and family, but now it was also full of questions. Why did someone call the police? Why did they lie? And would it happen again? Little Maya held her juice box tighter. She looked up at her mom. "Mommy, were we doing something wrong?" Angela knelt beside her. "No, baby. We were just having fun. Someone was just being mean." Maya nodded slowly. I didn't like the police looking at Daddy like that. Angela hugged her. Me neither. At the grill, Marcus stood quietly, watching the smoke rise. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was thinking about how quickly joy could be ruined, thinking about how many times this had happened to him, to others, to families who looked like his. He looked over the fence at Mr. Taylor's house. The curtains moved. The man was watching again. Marcus smiled, just a little, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind that said, "You tried to scare us, it didn't work." Later that evening, after the guests had eaten and the kids were playing again, Marcus sat at the picnic table with his brother, David. David leaned forward. "You handled that better than I would have, man." Marcus chuckled. "I know. That's why you stayed by the grill." They both laughed, but then David's face got serious. "You gonna let it go?" Marcus looked toward Mr. Taylor's house. "I don't know yet." David nodded. "He's done this before, hasn't he?" Marcus nodded back. 3 noise complaints. In 6 months, always filed anonymously, but it's him. David frowned. "You should report him." "I will," Marcus said, "but not today. Today was about showing my family that we don't run when people try to scare us." Back inside the house, Angela was cleaning up with her sister, Naomi. Naomi sighed. "He ruined the day." Angela shook her head. "No, he didn't. He tried. But we still laughed. We still danced." Naomi gave a small smile. "You really think he'll stop?" Angela paused. "No," she said. "But he's going to learn something soon." Later that night, when the guests were gone and the backyard was quiet, Marcus sat with Maya on the porch. She leaned against him. "Sleepy, Daddy." "Yes, baby." "Why did that man call the police on us?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Sometimes, people don't like what they don't understand. They see us laughing, being loud, being happy, and they get scared." Maya looked confused. "But we were just eating chicken." Marcus smiled. "Exactly. But some people don't want us to feel free." Maya frowned. "That's not fair." Marcus kissed her forehead. "No, it's not. That's why we stand tall. Always." The next morning, Marcus made pancakes for the family. Like always. But while the syrup was pouring, his phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend in the department. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he read it. "You might want to know. Your name came up in a noise complaint yesterday. Officer Thompson reported the call looked fake. They're flagging it for internal review." He showed Angela. She raised her eyebrows. "Fake." Marcus nodded. "Which means they're going to find out it was him." Angela smiled. "Finally." Meanwhile in his house, Mr. Taylor was also on the phone. "I don't understand," he said. "I made a report. I don't want those people throwing parties every weekend." The person on the other end was from the Homeowners Association. "Mr. Taylor, the Johnsons didn't break any rules. They had family over, no laws were broken." Taylor's voice grew sharper. "So you're just going to let them take over this street?" The HOA member paused. "Sir, maybe it's time to look at your own behavior." Taylor hung up angrily. For the first time, he felt something cold inside him. Not anger, fear. Afternoon. Marcus put on his shoes and picked up a small folder. Angela looked up from the couch. "You going somewhere?" Marcus nodded. "Downtown. I'm filing a formal report." He crossed the line. Angela stood and kissed him on the cheek. "Be careful." "I always am." When he reached the local police station, the front desk officer recognized him immediately. "Detective Johnson," she said with a smile. "What brings you in today?" Marcus handed her the folder. Inside was a record of every false complaint, every time he had been targeted, every letter from the HOA, and a copy of his badge. "I'd like this added to the file," he said calmly. "It's time the lies stop." Back at home, Angela was watering the flowers when she saw Mr. Taylor step outside. He looked surprised to see her. She didn't smile, she just waved. Slowly, the message was clear. "We're not afraid of you anymore." Mr. Taylor went back inside, closing his door quickly. That night, Marcus returned home. He hugged his wife, he hugged his daughter, and he said 3 simple words: "It has begun." The days after the BBQ were quiet. Too quiet, no music, no children laughing, just silence. It wasn't because the Johnsons were afraid, it was because they were watching, and waiting. And so was Mr. Taylor. Every morning Marcus sipped his coffee. On the front porch, he sat calmly, looking across the street. While Maya played with her toys, Angela would water the flowers. And from his window, Mr. Taylor watched them all confused and irritated. He had expected them to be embarrassed. He had expected them to feel small. Instead, they looked stronger than ever. Inside their house, Marcus and Angela sat at the dining table, going over some papers. "This one's from the HOA," Angela said. "They say if he files one more false complaint, he could be fined." Marcus nodded. "Good, but it's not enough." Angela raised her eyebrows. "You want more?" "I want him to understand something," Marcus said. "We didn't move here by accident." Angela smiled. Time to remind him. Flashback. 6 months ago the Johnsons stood outside the house on Maplewood Lane for the first time. Maya was spinning in circles on the grass. Laughing. Angela said, "It's perfect." Marcus looked at the porch, the street, the neighborhood. "More than perfect," he said. "It's ours." They had worked hard, years of saving, 2 full-time jobs, long nights, and skipped vacations. They didn't just buy a house. They claimed a home, back to present day. Mr. Taylor stood on his porch, holding a broom. His eyes narrowed as he watched Marcus mow the lawn. Suddenly, one of the other neighbors, Mrs. Rodriguez, from 3 houses down walked by. She waved at Marcus. "Morning, Mr. Johnson." He smiled. "Morning." Then she looked at Mr. Taylor. Her smile faded. She didn't wave. Mr. Taylor's face tightened. He could feel it. The street was changing. The people were watching. And they didn't believe him anymore. That evening, Marcus got a message from his police contact. "Your complaint was approved. Investigation opened. Want to go public?" Marcus stared at the phone for a long moment. He turned to Angela. "What do you think?" Angela said, "Sometimes the truth speaks louder when more people hear it." Marcus replied, "Then it's time." The next morning, a local reporter came by, a young black journalist named Jayla. She stood in the Johnsons' front yard with a camera crew. Marcus stood beside Angela, holding Maya's hand. Jayla asked, "Why speak out now?" Marcus looked into the camera and said calmly, "Because too many people stay silent when they're treated unfairly, and silence makes hate feel stronger. But this street is our street too. This neighborhood is our home too, and we won't be pushed out." The clip went viral overnight. Back in his living room, Mr. Taylor watched the report on his old TV. He watched Marcus speak. He watched Angela stand proudly. He saw Maya holding a sign that said, "Love lives here." He threw the remote across the room. 2 days later, a letter arrived at the Johnsons' house. Angela opened it slowly. It was handwritten. "I saw the story. I live across town. I've been through this too. Thank you for speaking up. You're not just helping your family, you're helping all of us." Marcus read the note, folded it gently, and said, "One voice becomes 2, 2 becomes 10. 10 becomes a movement." Angela smiled, "And it started in our backyard." But not everyone was happy. Mr. Taylor filed another complaint. This time he claimed the Johnsons were staring into his windows. It was a lie. The HOA called him directly. "Mr. Taylor," they said, "this has to stop." He shouted, "They're trying to turn everyone against me." The HOA responded, "No sir, you're doing that yourself." That evening, as the sun began to set, Marcus stood at the fence. Mr. Taylor stepped outside, holding his trash can. Their eyes met. For a long moment, no words were spoken. Then Marcus said calmly, "I see you, Mr. Taylor, and I know why you're angry, but we're not leaving. You can keep calling. You can keep lying, but every time you do, more people see the truth." Mr. Taylor's lips moved, but no words came out. He just turned away. Back in the house, Maya looked out the window. "Daddy," she said. "Why is he always so mad?" Marcus kneeled beside her. "Because some people don't understand how to share," he said. "They think only certain people belong in nice places." Maya asked, "But don't we belong too?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, baby, we belong here more than anyone." That weekend, the Johnsons hosted another BBQ, not a big one, just a few neighbors. Mrs. Rodriguez brought cookies. The couple from down the street brought lemonade. Music played again. Kids ran across the lawn again. And for the first time, other families of color walked over to. It wasn't just a barbecue, it was a statement. From behind the curtain. Mr. Taylor watched in silence. He saw smiles. He saw unity. He saw something stronger than hate. Community. And for the first time, he looked afraid because hate only works when good people stay quiet. And now, the good people were louder than ever. The Johnsons' second BBQ wasn't just a family gathering, it was a message. A message that said, "We're still here. We belong here, and we won't be quiet." Neighbors came. Laughter returned. The smell of food filled the street again. But not everyone was happy. From his window, Mr. Taylor watched with tight lips and cold eyes. That evening, he sat in the dark with a glass of water, staring at his TV but not really watching it. He felt something boiling inside. Not just anger, not just pride, but something deeper. Lost. He had spent years thinking this street belonged to him. He had never had to share it before. Now, it felt like his power was slipping away. The next morning, Marcus stepped onto his porch with a cup of coffee. He waved at Mrs. Rodriguez, who was jogging by. She waved back with a smile. "Nice BBQ yesterday." Marcus grinned. "You still owe me the lemonade recipe." They both laughed. And just behind the bushes, Mr. Taylor stood silently. Watching the interaction, he felt invisible, and he didn't like that. Later that day, while Marcus was at work, Angela stepped out to check the mailbox. There was a letter taped to the front door. No envelope, no name, just a message written in angry black marker. "Keep your noise and people out of this street. This isn't your place." Angela froze. Her heart beat faster. She looked around, but no one was outside. She took the note and went back inside, her hands slightly shaking. When Marcus returned home, Angela showed him the letter. He read it slowly, then folded it and put it on the table. Maya peeked up from her coloring book. "What's that?" Angela smiled gently. "Nothing important, baby." Marcus didn't speak. He walked to the window, stared across the yard, and whispered, "Enough is enough." That evening, Marcus called David, his younger brother. "I'm thinking about confronting him," Marcus said. David replied, "Been waiting to hear that for weeks." Marcus chuckled, but not with fists, with facts. The next morning, Marcus put on his badge, not the one for work, but the one from his years of service in the city police department. He hadn't worn it publicly since his promotion. He didn't like using power to scare people, but today wasn't about showing off. It was about drawing a line. As he walked across the yard, Angela watched from the porch. She didn't stop him this time. She knew his patience had run out. He stepped onto Mr. Taylor's porch and knocked twice. The door creaked open slowly. Mr. Taylor stood there, tired eyes, lips pressed into a line. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "I know you wrote the note. I know about the fake calls. And I know what you're trying to do." Taylor's jaw clenched. "You can't prove anything." Marcus held up the letter. "You left fingerprints on this. The police could easily trace it, and this time, I'm pressing charges." Taylor laughed nervously. "What, you're gonna call your cousins on me?" That's when Marcus pulled out his badge. He held it up to eye level. Taylor blinked, confused. What is that?" Marcus said clearly. "That's my badge. I'm a senior advisor for the state police department. Not just a homeowner, not just a father. I work with officers across the state to stop racial harassment. And starting today, I'm using every tool I have to make sure you're held accountable." Taylor stumbled back a step. "You tricked me," he whispered. Marcus replied, calm, but firm. "No, you judged me. And you thought I wouldn't fight back. You thought being polite meant being weak. You were wrong." Just then, a few neighbors stepped outside. Watching from across the street, Mrs. Rodriguez stood on her porch, arms crossed. Another neighbor held up their phone, quietly recording. Taylor looked around and for the first time, he didn't see support. He saw the truth. He was alone. Marcus took one last look and turned to walk away. But before he left, he said, "We moved here to raise our daughter in peace. We don't want trouble, but if you bring it to our door again, you'll be the one who has to leave." And with that, Marcus walked back to his home, head high. Angela opened the door for him. Maya looked up. "Did you tell him, Daddy?" Marcus, it smiled. "I did, baby. I told him everything." That night, Marcus received a call from the local precinct. "Mr. Johnson, we received your complaint. Based on your position, we're fast-tracking the report. That neighbor will be contacted officially tomorrow. He could face fines or worse." Marcus thanked them and hung up. Angela placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's finally happening." Marcus looked at her and nodded. "This isn't just about him anymore. It's about every family who's ever been told, you don't belong here." In the darkness across the street, Mr. Taylor sat alone at his kitchen table. The lights were off. His phone buzzed. Messages, new posts, new videos of Marcus holding the badge. The neighborhood was talking, the internet was watching, and slowly, Mr. Taylor realized he had picked the wrong family. The next morning, Maplewood Lane looked normal. Birds chirped. The sun rose over the rooftops. Cars rolled out of driveways. But inside one house, Mr. Taylor's house, there was tension in the air. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He just kept checking his phone. The video of Marcus holding his badge had gone viral in the neighborhood Facebook group, and now, everyone knew. The man Taylor tried to scare was a high-ranking officer who trained police in racial sensitivity. Across the street, the Johnson house was peaceful. Marcus was making breakfast. Angela poured orange juice. Maya danced around the kitchen in her pajamas. Angela looked at her husband. "So, any updates from the station?" Marcus smiled. "They said the report's been processed. Mr. Taylor will be officially notified today." Angela exhaled. Finally, Marcus took a bite of toast and said calmly, "I never wanted to show him my badge, but sometimes, you need to remind people what strength really looks like." Meanwhile, the doorbell rang at Mr. Taylor's home. He opened it slowly. Two police officers stood there, calm, professional. "Good morning, Mr. Taylor," one officer said. "We're here to speak with you about a series of false reports and a handwritten threat left at your neighbor's door." Taylor blinked. I didn't." One officer held up a copy of the letter. "We have surveillance footage and fingerprints. You're being investigated for harassment and filing false complaints." Taylor's face turned pale. "But he tricked me. He didn't tell me who he was." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You didn't have to." "That's not how the law works." Back at the Johnsons' house, Marcus stepped out onto the porch with his coffee. He saw the officers outside. Mr. Taylor's home. He didn't smile. He just stood silently, not with anger, not with pride, but with quiet dignity. Maya peeked through the window. "Daddy, are they talking to the mean man?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, sweetie. Is he in trouble?" Marcus paused, then said gently, "He's learning a lesson." Later that day, Marcus got a call from the Homeowners Association. "Mr. Johnson, we want to thank you for your patience and how respectfully you handled everything." Marcus replied, "I wasn't looking for praise. I just want to live in peace." The HOA rep continued, "We've voted to fine Mr. Taylor for harassment and racial intimidation, and ... he's been warned. Any more trouble, and he could be removed from the community." Marcus hung up the phone quietly, then turned to Angela and said, "One more step forward." That evening, the doorbell rang. Marcus opened the door to find Mr. Taylor standing there, holding a small envelope. He looked tired, ashamed, and smaller than usual. I just came to say sorry, Taylor said, looking at the ground. I didn't know who you were. Marcus didn't take the envelope. He simply asked, would you have treated me differently if I weren't a cop? Taylor didn't answer. Because the silence was the answer. Angela came to the door. Maya peeked from behind her. Marcus said calmly, we didn't move here to fight. We moved here to grow. We tried to be kind. You tried to push us away. But now you know something you didn't. Before, we don't back down. Taylor stuttered. I just wanted my peace and quiet, ... Angela spoke firmly. So did we. But peace doesn't come from pushing people out. It comes from letting people in. Taylor placed the envelope on the porch and walked away without another word. Inside the envelope was a short note. I'm sorry. I lost my way. That night, Marcus and Angela sat on the porch, watching the stars. Angela whispered, you think he really means it? Marcus replied, maybe, maybe not. But I didn't do it for him. I did it for Maya. Angela looked at him. For Maya. Marcus nodded. One day she'll grow up. She'll face her own battles. I want her to remember that her father stood tall, not with anger, but with truth. Across the street, Mr. Taylor sat alone in his kitchen, staring at the darkness. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't proud. He was quiet because he finally understood. He had tried to break a family, but all he did was reveal their strength. The neighborhood felt different now, for the first time in weeks. There were no arguments, no complaints, no police cars, just calm. But it wasn't quiet because of peace. It was quiet because of change. Every morning, Marcus sat on his porch like usual, sipping his coffee, watching Maya ride her bike up and down the sidewalk. Angela read a book nearby. The house felt warm, safe, happy. Across the fence, however, Mr. Taylor's house was silent. The blinds stayed closed. The grass was growing long, and the man who once caused so much noise had gone completely still. The neighborhood had turned. Mrs. Rodriguez started inviting Angela to her morning walks. The Patel family from 2 houses down brought over a pie. People who had once kept their distance now stopped to wave and smile. Marcus noticed he didn't say much. He didn't need to. Respect had arrived. And it wasn't forced, it was earned. One afternoon, Maya ran into the house holding something. Mommy, Daddy, look. Angela smiled. What is it, baby? It's a card. It was in our mailbox. Marcus opened the small envelope. Inside was a simple note, handwritten. Your strength taught me something. I was scared to speak before, but not anymore. Thank you for standing up for all of us. No name, no return address. Just gratitude. Angela looked at Marcus. You see? People are watching. Marcus nodded. We didn't just protect our family. We gave others permission to speak. But not everyone was ready to speak. Mr. Taylor hadn't been seen in days. One morning, Angela peeked through the kitchen window and saw the mail piling up at his front door. Should we check on him? She asked Marcus. He took a breath. I don't know if he wants anyone to. That evening, a moving truck showed up. Maya was the first to see it. Daddy, look. A big truck is at Mr. Taylor's house. Marcus and Angela stepped outside. The truck parked in front of the house. 2 workers got out and started carrying boxes. No one saw Mr. Taylor come out until the very end. He stepped onto the porch slowly, watching the street with tired eyes. His shoulders looked heavy. His clothes were wrinkled, but in his hand, he held something. A small white envelope. He walked across the street slowly. Carefully, Ann stopped at the Johnsons' mailbox. He slipped the envelope and Emson looked toward the porch. Marcus stood there. Still, they locked eyes. Taylor didn't say anything. Neither did Marcus. After a moment, the older man gave a small nod, barely visible, then turned and walked away. Angela opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter to the Johnson family. I'm leaving the neighborhood, not because I lost, but because I need to learn. Your strength broke something in me, Aunt. Maybe that's what I needed. This street is better with you on it. I just couldn't see it before. I hope one day you can forgive the man I was. It was signed Frank Taylor. Angela read it twice, then handed it to Marcus. He folded it gently and placed it on the table. As the moving truck drove away, Maya asked, Is the mean man going forever? Marcus looked down at her and said softly, He's not a mean man, baby. He was just lost. Sometimes, people stay lost for a long time, until someone shows them a different path. Maya nodded slowly. Did we show him? Marcus smiled. Think we did? The next weekend, the Johnsons held a small BBQ. Just family. Just peace, no complaints. No glares. No sirens. Just food, laughter, and love. That night, Marcus sat on the porch alone, watching the stars. Angela stepped outside and handed him a cup of tea. You okay? He nodded. Double quotes. Yeah, I just keep thinking. We never shouted. We never fought. We just stood still, and that made all the noise we needed. Angela sat beside him. Sometimes silence is more powerful than shouting. Marcus smiled. And now, even the fence feels quieter. Because the war was never about volume. It was about belonging. And now, no one doubted they belonged. Not even the man who once tried to erase them. Mr. Taylor had left. His house was empty. His blinds were open for the first time in years. No footsteps on the porch. No cold eyes behind the curtains. Just silence. But even after he was gone, his presence remained, not in fear, but in memory. Angela stood at the window one morning, holding a cup of tea. She watched as a new for sale sign was placed in front of Mr. Taylor's old house. She whispered, "It's over." But Marcus, sitting at the kitchen table, replied, "No, it's just beginning." Angela turned. "Beginning." Marcus looked up from his laptop. "People are writing letters. I've gotten emails from neighbors across the city. Some asking for help. Some just saying thank you. What we lived through, others are still living." That evening, Marcus opened one letter in particular. The handwriting was familiar. Inside was a note, short, honest. "You may never see me again, but I saw myself for the first time because of you. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I do want your respect. Thank you for showing me what quiet strength looks like." Angela read the note too. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Sometimes, shame writes the best apologies." A few days later, a new family came to visit the house next door. A couple in their 30s, with 2 young kids and a golden retriever. Maya watched from the porch, excited. "Daddy, someone new is coming." Marcus smiled. "Let's go say hello." They walked across the street with a plate of cookies. "Hi there," Angela said kindly. "Welcome to Maplewood Lane." The woman smiled. "Thank you. I'm Serena, and this is my husband Terrence." Marcus shook hands. "I'm Marcus. This is Angela. That's Maya, our daughter." Terrence grinned. "Great to meet you all. We were worried about fitting in." Angela laughed. "We know that feeling." Later that night, Marcus wrote in his journal. He hadn't done that in years. He scribbled one sentence. "We turned fear into family." But things weren't completely calm just yet. A local radio show picked up their story and invited Marcus to speak live on Air. Angela hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" Speaking up again, Marcus nodded. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every person who feels unheard." At the station, the host leaned forward behind the mic. "You're a detective, a father, a neighbor, but now you're also a voice. What do you want people to learn from your story?" Marcus looked into the mic and said, "I want people to know that kindness doesn't mean silence, that staying calm doesn't mean you're weak, and that if someone tries to push you out of your own home, you don't leave. You plant your feet, you lift your head, and you let your life speak louder than hate." The host paused. That was powerful. Meanwhile, across town in a quiet apartment building, Mr. Taylor sat on an old couch listening to the radio. Didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared out the window at the sky, his eyes slightly wet. He turned off the radio after Marcus finished speaking. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Not because he was happy, but because he finally understood. Back on Maplewood Lane, life moved on. Maya returned to school. Angela started a neighborhood book club. Marcus began speaking at local community centers teaching kids how to deal with injustice with calm courage. He shared the lessons he had lived. "Don't fight fire with fire," he told one group of teens. "Fight it with truth, with patience, and with proof of who you are." One Sunday, a small envelope was left at the Johnsons' door. No name, just a note. Inside, a picture. It was the Johnson family. At their BBQ, someone had taken it from a distance. Behind them stood neighbors laughing, kids playing music in the background, and at the bottom of the photo, written in small, black ink, "This is what victory looks like." Angela held the photo in her hands. "Who sent this?" Marcus smiled. "Someone who finally learned to watch instead of judge." Later that night, Marcus sat on the porch under the stars. Angela joined him, wrapping a blanket around them both. They sat in silence for a while. Then Angela whispered, "Do you think he ever really changed?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I think. We gave him the chance to, and that's more than he gave us." Angela rested her head on his shoulder. "You didn't just protect our home. You gave us a story worth remembering." Marcus nodded. "And it's not over yet. Because sometimes, the loudest apologies are the ones whispered after the damage is done. And the most powerful victories are the ones earned without raising your voice." Spring arrived on Maplewood Lane. The trees bloomed. The air smelled fresh. The street, once cold with tension, now felt alive, and at the center of it all stood the Johnsons' home. Not the biggest house, not the fanciest house, but the strongest one, because it had stood through whispers, complaints, false police calls, and silent hate, and it had never broken. One morning, Maya rode her bike up and down the sidewalk. Kids from across the street joined her laughing, racing, shouting joyfully. Angela stood on the porch, holding a tray of lemonade. Neighbors waved. Mrs. Rodriguez shouted from her garden, "You better not forget my book club tonight." Angela laughed. Never. The Johnsons were no longer just the new family. They were the heart of the street. Inside the house, Marcus was writing. Not a report, not a complaint, but a speech. He had been invited to speak at a citywide community conference called Voices of Change. He would stand in front of hundreds of parents, police officers, teachers, people who needed to hear his story. He looked out the window at his daughter and wrote the title, "This Street is Ours." That night, as he practiced his speech in front of Angela, she smiled. Your voice used to be so quiet, she said. Marcus smiled back, because I didn't think people would listen. Angela touched his hand. Now the whole city is listening. Conference day. Marcus stood backstage, wearing a dark blue shirt and a calm expression. His heart beat fast but steady. The host called his name. Please welcome Detective Marcus Johnson, community leader and father. Applause filled the hall. Marcus walked to the podium, took a breath, and began. I come from a quiet home, a home that was tested by lies, by fear, and by someone who didn't believe we belonged on our own street. We were the targets of fake police calls, hateful notes, and silent looks. But we didn't fight with fists. We didn't scream. We stood still. We stayed kind. And that shook the street more than any shouting ever could. He paused. One man tried to break us, but instead, our neighbors saw who we really were. And when hate walked away, community stepped forward. The room was silent. No coughs, no phones, just hearts wide open. My daughter asked me once, why did he call the police on us? And I told her, some people fear what they don't understand. But we didn't leave. We planted deeper roots. Because this street doesn't belong to hate. It belongs to everyone, willing to love, protect, and stay through the storm. He looked at the crowd. Eyes were wet. Hands were on hearts. He finished. So to anyone watching, anyone wondering if you should stay quiet, let me tell you, don't. Be calm, but don't. Be silent, because in the end, this street is ours, and no one gets to take that away. The applause lasted minutes. People stood. Some clapped, some cried, and Marcus simply nodded once, quietly, like always. That evening, when he returned home, Maya ran to the door. Did you win, Daddy? Marcus knelt down and said, Baby, we already won. A few days later, a letter arrived from Mr. Taylor, this time, signed with his full name. Inside was a short message. I moved in with my sister. I'm attending therapy. I started volunteering. I don't expect friendship, but I do want you to know, you were right. That street was never mine alone. It belonged to anyone who treated it like home. Angela folded the letter carefully, but Marcus placed it in a drawer, not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of closure, the final page of a long, painful chapter. 1 month later, a new family moved into Mr. Taylor's old house. This time, a young couple, black, like the Johnsons. When their moving truck arrived, Marcus walked over, smiling. Need a hand? The young man grinned. Only if you've got one strong arm and good advice. Angela joined him with lemonade. Maya handed a welcome card she had drawn herself, and in that moment, the circle completed, because this wasn't just a street, it was now a safe place, a healed place, a place that once whispered fear but now shouted unity as the sun set behind Maplewood Lane. Marcus stood on the porch with Angela and Maya. They watched kids playing, they watched peace stretched on the sidewalks like warm light, and Marcus whispered, mostly to himself, we didn't just survive here. We changed it. Angela took his hand. Maya looked up and said, Daddy, yes, baby. She smiled. Can we have another BBQ? Marcus laughed. Yes, we can.